Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for episode 23 of SEO Fight Club. So, Kyle is not here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for
He's
joining
traveling.
us.
And we'll just get started. So, we're SEO Fight Club. If you want to read our bios, find out why we think our opinions matter, you can find those brief bios at that domain name. We won't bore you with those details. And if you haven't heard, you probably have, but if you haven't, there's this show called SEO This Week. It's run by Clint Butler, and it is a huge time saver if you pour through the web looking for blog posts and news related to SEO and search marketing. Clint already does this, and he boils it down from hundreds of posts and articles down to the 5 or 10 that seem to matter most for the week, and he does this every week. So I used to pour through all the media, and I'd probably spend 20 hours a month doing that, and I got all that time back by just watching Clint's show. And it basically found all the same things I was hunting for. So, Clint, what can people expect on your show?
This week we had Moon, Hussein, and Marie. I'm going to try to pronounce Marie's last name on. And we started off the show talking about women in SEO. It was actually a pretty good conversation. And then we moved into more keyword cannibalization and some on-page fixes and stuff and how to look at that and gain some quick wins in lieu of link building if you hate link building. So.
Very cool. So check that out. And please remember to subscribe if you like the show. YouTube enables different features based on how many people subscribe to your channel. So we really rely on you guys subscribing to our channels in order to enable those features and to better provide content for you. So thank you if you already have subscribed. And if you haven't, please click the button and ring the bell for notifications. And our Skype group is full, but there's a waiting list to get into it. And we plan to announce a solution in the very near future. So if you want to be notified of that solution to get into the group, join the wait list and we will email you, if not just let you in once that solution is available. Both URLs below have forms on them where you can go and get on the wait list. So today's topic is starting a business. So what do you think about this topic, Clint?
I like it. I think it's really kind of mixes in with the SEO crowd anyway, because we're all pretty much entrepreneurs for the most part. So I think it's a great topic.
Excellent. Well, let's dive right in. So the fears, taking that big leap, quitting a day job and going for it, what are some of the common fears? Like people worry about going bankrupt and not having health insurance. And what if I'm a total failure? And I have a good job. Can I really quit it for an unknown? I have a wife and kids and bills. What if I'm not good enough? What if I get in trouble over the taxes and licenses and, all of that stuff? What do you think about the fears?
I think trying to went through all of those. Wife, kids, and bills was probably the one that slowed me down the most. And then after that, taxes and licenses didn't really bother me, but wife, kids, and bills, that was my biggest one.
Yeah. These are more worries than actual roadblocks, and probably the one with the most teeth to it are, I have a wife and kids and bills.
Yeah,
that's kind of the big one on the list. So, my thoughts, going bankrupt, finances are usually a matter of timing. So if you can plan well, you can figure out what your startup costs. And a lot of the smaller ventures I've done have really had low startup costs, like less than $5,000. So if you can save up for a Disney vacation, you can often save up for those smaller style ventures. But really, it's a matter of planning. The same way you save up to go to Disneyland is the same way you save up to start a venture. With health insurance, I've always found that the health insurance I choose to buy for myself is way better than the health insurance I've gotten from past employers. So, that probably isn't the same for everyone, but you have some choice in the matter of what you do. And failure, rarely catastrophic, as long as you can adapt and pivot and be flexible with the idea, it's usually something that you can recover from, if you make a bad decision or something breaks and goes wrong. The world is a pretty forgiving place most of the time. There are a few ways to fail catastrophically, though. Quitting a job for an unknown, this one I don't think is a problem for the startup in doing a startup. This is a problem in starting a startup. Like, my biggest regrets have always been staying in a crappy job for way longer than I should have. And, I regret not starting SEO Tool Lab 5 years sooner. I totally could have, but I was comfortable in a cushy job, and I fell prey to that fear. And I shouldn't have, because, I'd be light years ahead of where I am now had I started 5 years sooner. So that's actually a regret. I regret falling prey to that fear. We mentioned wife, kids, and bills is legit. So you got to decide for yourself on that.
Well, you got to have that conversation with the wife too, because if she's not down for it, then you're going to be in trouble. Well, significant other or whatever.
When
the case,
when I talked with my wife about starting SEO Tool Lab, I basically laid it out. I told my wife that, what, I've hit director level at a fairly large online retailer. The only level above me is the C level. And I could work the next 10, 20 years here and never break that ceiling. And we'll always be where we're at now. And, I'll probably be miserable doing that. Happy to do it. It provides. But, we could go for it. And in a worst case scenario, I have to find a new job, which isn't the end of the world. But in the best case scenario, maybe I can provide better for my family. Maybe we can have a shot at it. And, at the end of my life, when I'm 95 years old and not doing anything, I sure would like to look back and say, I tried. Succeed or failed, I took that chance. At one point in my life, I took that chance.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have regrets over failing on trying to do that. And, I think that's probably the thing you have to do, but you have to be reasonable. You can't bet the farm. You can't put your kids at risk. You can't, you got to weigh it. And if you're single and unmarried, then now's the time.
For sure. Yeah, like me, I got around that because I had a parachute. So I retired from the Army and I get my VA benefits. So I'm always going to have a house. As long as I got a house, I'm good. You know what I mean? So that was my parachute. So when I took the dive, it wasn't as scary, but it was still scary to walk away from a 6-figure a year income to start a new business. So.
Yeah, and I hear this next one a lot. What if I'm not good enough? Well, the truth is, if you're not good enough to own your own business, then you're probably not good enough in your role of being employed for someone else. Either you're good enough to do the work or you're not. So I usually find that fear, what if I'm not good enough, tends to not be true. If you are able to be employed, you usually have the skills that you would need to deliver. But the the catch to that is, I'm a developer and a marketer, and on the developer side, I hear lots of other developers going, man, I could write software that would be so cool. Knowing how to do that technical work does not mean you know how to run a business that does the technical work. So I think a lot of engineers tend to confuse those two, and marketers might too. Like, you might know how to rank a page, but that doesn't mean you know how to run an agency profitably. They're two totally different skill sets. So the thing about what if I'm not good enough, I think where that has some teeth is, I know how to do the work that I get paid for. The question is, do I know how to run a business that makes money? And that's where I think that one comes into play.
Or knowing how to find the people that know how to cover for your shortfalls. So that's, I can sell, and I have sold, but everyone knows I'm pretty straightforward. And most people these days really can't handle that. So I have to find a sales guy that can actually, deal with that kind of person. You know what I mean? So, or accounting. I hate accounting. Like, it's horrible. But that's part of business and running it. So you find an accountant. So those are things you got to be able to accept too. What you are not good at, and being able to cut away that from your daily task list and handing it off to someone else.
Yeah, and we'll come back to that later. But one of the fears there is that you would hand off things that you don't know how to do simply because you don't know how to do them, versus delegating what you don't like to do. And one of the pitfalls there is, would you ever find yourself in a situation where you're asking your accountant if you can write checks? And it's that abdication. And where I see it commonly happen is when non-technical business people, like marketers, get held hostage by engineers because they don't know how to code, and the engineers won't let them make a choice about their business. So I can't do that in my business because my PHP guy says no, and I don't know PHP. You're effectively held hostage by abdicating what you don't know. And we'll come back to that, but that's another thing to watch out for. And then taxes and licenses and running a business. You can talk to the Small Business Administration in your state, and they'll tell you about the local laws and requirements. There's a book called the 24-Hour MBA, which takes you through the mechanics of running a business and figuring out if you're profitable and what your costs are. And typically you can get the answers to all these questions with like a weekend of research. So it's really not that big of a deal. Another problem is so many people want to change the world. They're like, this idea is worth $100 million. It'll change the way businesses do business. And I've typically found that those tend to be the worst ideas because they rarely make money. And I'm in business to make money, so I like thinking small. And I often tell people, if you can solve a $250 problem well, and your solution is easy to sell over and over and over and over again, that is a great business idea. It's when you have $100 million idea and it's going to take 5 years to implement, and you need to raise $2.5 million in angel funding. Sure, there's a time and a place for that. I've even done that in past lives, but man, the handcuffs that come with taking investment dollars and having to have board meetings and having to elect a board, and the board having to decide on management, and having to turn down really good ideas because they don't do a 10x for the shareholders. And holy crap, if your idea is to get away from having a boss, taking investment dollars is counterproductive. You are multiplying the number of people you answer to. And so, yeah, that's why I like thinking small. If you can own it all, I mean, then it's all going into your pocket. That's a good idea. Not all ideas lend themselves to that. You have to be open-minded, but you should definitely think about it first.
What do you think about the theory? A lot of people like to, oh, no one else is in my market. No one else is doing that.
Well, if it's a good idea, you can expect competition.
Right.
I mean, even I have copycats. I mean, people have seen it, and it sucks, man, when people steal your idea and they get other people to pay them for your idea. Man, that sucks.
Doesn't competition though? Well, one, it breeds a better tool for one, and then two, it kind of justifies, in my opinion, it says, hey, look, I'm picked the right niche. Look at there's other people here. They're already making money. I know there's money here. I've chosen correctly. Doesn't that help?
Well, it validates that it's a really good idea. I mean, if you're making money, somebody else is going to want to make a piece of it too. So it's going to happen. People often try to protect against that by being in stealth mode, and we'll talk about that too. But that's usually a mistake because we're in business to make money, so hiding your product from your customers is usually a bad idea. Another thing about thinking small is, having a very cheap operation, having very low startup costs. And, for a lot of us, our startup costs for being, a sole proprietor SEO agency or, a software startup, it's a cell phone, a domain name, cheap hosting, maybe a web design, which could be as low as, a $50 template or something, laptop, few software tools, those kinds of startup costs, you're talking in the range of a couple $1,000s maybe. So it's not huge. And in terms of like office space, most .com era startups were folding tables in a garage. Steve Jobs used to talk about the early days, and that's what they had, and that's those entrepreneurs, they always look back fondly to those early days. So, my startup wasn't in a garage. It was the storage room in the basement, but it's the same thing,
Yeah, Amazon started in a garage.
Let's see. So attitude, I think, is the most important ingredient in a startup being successful. Getting up early is my key trick because I really do find my best hours are in the morning, and my brain gets fried by the afternoon, and all I can do is drool and drink a beer. So I have to get up early because that's when stuff gets done. Bias for action is a huge one. So, just resisting the urge to procrastinate or to not do it right this second, those are the things that get you into trouble. You got an email, reply to it, say, hey, I got your email. I don't have an answer. Let me get back to you, but I just wanted to let you know I got your email. That bias for action works in your favor. And it's the same thing with bugs. Like, you have a bug in your product. It's like, acknowledge it right away. Let people know you're working on it. Try to get a solution. People are forgiving, especially if they see action. And so that really is in your favor if you can have that bias for action. Positivity, if you're screaming at your customers for telling you a truth, that's no good. Criticism is vital, and in a service or a software company, You are going to get harsh criticism, and you need to be able to take it well. I am not a person who takes criticism well. It hurts me deeply, but I know that about myself. And so I can take a step back and breathe and read it again and try to put the best spin on it, try to go back and paint it in a way where they're trying to help me, because that's usually the case. It's just my ego getting in the way saying, no. And so, if you don't take criticism well, you need to be like me and work on that. And getting crazy is an important thing. Some days I say, screw it. I am just going to write 10,000 lines of code. I'm not going to let anyone interrupt me. I'm going to get this thing done. And, sometimes you just have to do it. And I find that if the only thing between me and success is effort, then it's done. I've won. Because there's no amount of effort I won't expend to succeed. The trick is really getting it down to a point where all that's needed is effort. That's the hard thing to set up. But I look for those opportunities where if I can do A, B, and C, then all I have to do is 100 hours and bam. So if I can get to the point where all that's needed is 100 hours, then bingo, I've done it. And then, the counter force to that is work smarter, not harder. So those two things, you'd think they're in opposition, but they actually work great together. And that's figure out ways to free up your time. If I solve this one issue in the software, I eliminate an entire class of support inquiry on the email side. That's brilliant. I should prioritize fixing that class of problem. Doing those things is hugely valuable. Any attitude aspects you'd add to that?
I am kind of right along with you in the get up early for sure. I used to, sleep in, and hey, I work for myself. I can get up whenever I want to, and then half the day's gone, and I've watched like 100 videos on YouTube, and that's about it. So, so I started getting up. I get up at 6:30. Sometimes if I have a lot of stuff to do, I'll get up at 4:30. My wife has to get up at 4:30 anyway, so typically I'll just get up with her. That works for me.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'll rarely stay up later than like 10:30, and I'll try to be up by 6.
Yeah, it just makes for the day doesn't go by and you don't look back and go, "What did you do?" So,
yeah, when I had a day job, I would get up at 4:15 and get into the office super early so I could leave by 2. And the main reason is I'd have half my day without coworkers to get stuff done. And I found that was an excellent life hack for working a day job.
yeah. One thing, if you're like me, you work in a home office. The allure is a lot better than the reality. So every once in a while, you need to get out and go put yourself somewhere else. Go to Starbucks, go to a library, go to a bookstore that's got wireless, and do some work there and kind of break that cycle. And you find that you're a lot more refreshed to be at the office, as it were, if you're doing that every once in a while.
And we'll give you some ideas later on how to shake up things a little bit too that have some extra benefits. So my first year of doing this current startup, I developed my product on a 3-year-old Mac, and once I had it working on a Mac, it's like I need to support PC users. I can't go live without a PC version. So I took the credit card, went to Best Buy, found the cheapest PC they had is a desktop PC for $200. Man, that thing sucks. But it allowed me to build the software for PC and to test that it ran. My office again is just a storage room in the basement, and we took all the boxes out and put in a desk, called it an office. I didn't have a monitor my first year, So, look at that thing you're looking at right now. I didn't have one of those. My phone was a free phone that came with the $20 data plan. And I spent the bulk of my startup money on VPS hosting, and I probably overspent for what I needed. So in hindsight, I could probably reduce that cost. What were your startup costs like when you got started?
I got a new computer because I was just coming back from Afghanistan, so I did that, and I buy Macs, so I bought an iMac, and that was a couple grand. And the standing up Desk, I bought one of those. That was about $500. Hosting, I was using Liquid Web at the time, dedicated a host. That was a couple $100. But other than that, it was pretty. Once you pay that, you're done, right? So that was it for me.
Yeah, then it's all taking on clients and doing work.
Yeah, exactly.
So common mistakes when you're starting a business, don't use your current employer's resources, or you might find yourself not owning your business and product. So definitely do not use somebody else's resources. You need your own computer. You need to use your own time. You need to make sure you don't have a non-compete or any contracts that bar you from moonlighting. You need to, these are important things. And some states like California, they non-competes are like illegal there, but other states they're legally binding. So you really kind of need to look into your situation. But yeah, you definitely don't want to use somebody else's resources to make your invention, or you might find you don't own it. Borrowing money can be a mistake. So taking investors, taking out loans, taking on partners too soon is often a problem, because you might find that if you actually just roll up your sleeves and do it, you don't need those things, and then you can maintain control and not have the debt. So borrowing money too soon is potentially a problem. It's not always a problem if you need it. If you need help with startup costs, or there's too much work for one person to do, then it makes all the sense in the world. But if you take on a partner and then later find out you could have done it all yourself and now you've given up half your company, well, maybe slow down on that. Quitting, 9 out of 10 startups fail, and really because people give up. They don't adapt. They stop pivoting. They don't keep trying. So you need to be that one crazy business that had 10, totally rational times in their past where they should have closed their doors and cut their losses and chose not to. That's probably how you get to being that 1 in 10, is by finding a way. Have you ever quit on a project?
Oh, sure. But like Digital Ear, when I started that, I quit it a couple times. I hate clients. But I had to get back up on the horse and go. So that's probably my military experience. Is just, there is no fail. Fail is not an option. It's a learning experience. So that's kind of how I approached Digital Ear, and how I approaching working with Over the Top too is we're going to stumble, we're going to run into roadblocks, but we're going to get back up, and we're just going to try a different way and keep going until it works. And it's been a good formula. So,
well, why don't you tell everyone how much you love perfection?
I don't know. Let's see. Done is better than perfect. I think that's probably the best statement on the slide there. I found that if I continue to go back and, I need to do this, I need to get that working, then I never get it done. I kind of going through a little bit of that right now, taking a book out of yours and Kyle's page, is creating a software. It's and your sound advice was, dude, just get it working. Shut up about, it's not ready to do this. It's not ready to do this. Just get it working, for crying out loud. And, I think that's one of my biggest stumbling blocks is we're investing so much time trying to make it perfect right out of the gate. But when I see you and the processes you're going with Cora is like, well, it's never perfect. He's always changing something. So I kind of, got to get over that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Perfection is just over investing with your time. And that's a big mistake. And if you remember the Cora beta, man, that thing sucks compared to what we had today. And I went live with it, you just got to start with what you have and promise to make it better and deliver on that promise to continually improve.
And it also goes along if you're training yourself. We talk about SEO, so that's a good example. If you're learning SEO, I don't know SEO enough yet. I don't know SEO enough yet. At some point, you're going to know more than your clients already, so you have a viable skill there. I do think there's a balance of people who sell SEO and have no clue what they're doing, and getting real businesses in trouble. I have a really big problem with that. But, at some point you're just going to have to put down the courses and apply that stuff. And that's where that perfection comes in as well. I don't have 500 case studies. Everyone says I need this great case study. I'm going to build that. Well, there's a year of your life gone that you weren't running a business. So that's another stumbling block that I had too. So
yeah, stealth mode. Your idea is so precious you can't sell your product. Yeah, that's a terrible idea in my book. So stealth mode is a 4-letter word to me. It just means that you're not making money and you have no plans to make money anytime soon. So if your idea is so good that you can't sell units, then your idea is terrible in my book.
Yeah, I think that goes right back along the lines of, no one else is doing this. No one else has thought of this. Yeah, it's great to be a plank holder, but if no one knows, like the wine guy, for example, that's a good example of how this could apply to stealth mode. He's not hiding his market or anything, but he's invented something new that people just aren't looking for, and repositioning that. And the advice we gave him, hopefully he's killing it. But that would be a good thing that stealth mode would apply, in my opinion.
Yeah. And then, as promised, you got to learn. You delegate what you don't enjoy doing yourself. But if you're saying, I don't know how to keep the books for my business, so I just need to hand over the bank accounts to an accountant and hope they do the right thing. That's abdication, and you do not want to do that. And like the example I have here, my PHP guy says I can't offer that, whatever in my business. And since I don't know PHP, I have to go with what my PHP guy tells me to do with my business. That's abdication. And those types of behaviors get you into trouble because they allow you to be taken advantage of. You don't know how to get into the books to see where money's going. You don't know how to demand that something be done in your PHP app because you don't know what's possible. And so you need to educate yourself enough to not be taken advantage of, and then you can delegate.
I was with that. I was that way with code in particular. That was a hard one for me. Is I had to learn code because you had the devs. Oh no, you can't do that. Oh no, you can't do that. And then you go find examples of people who do it. Or no, I can't change that. It'll break it. And I know enough code now that I can go in there and change it myself and be like, duh, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's helpful. I'm not a coder. I'll never make a PHP website or anything, but I can go into PHP. I can go into HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and make edits. So
yeah, and you should understand what they do, how they work, just so you don't get taken advantage of.
Yep.
And listening is an incredibly difficult skill, and you have to practice it. And It requires the closing of your own mouth, which, for a lot of us is very difficult. And people are always trying to help you. And even when they tell you bad ideas, even when they tell you things you don't want to hear, you can learn from it. You can cherry pick from all these ideas that make it to your table. And telling people no is also a skill. There are people that are very uncomfortable saying no. They get a sales guy on the phone and they don't know what to do. And, they usually end up getting mad and hanging up. I hate sales calls. When all you need to do is to say, hey, this is a really great idea, but, at this time, I'm not ready for this kind of solution. Maybe call me in a year and let's see. But I have to say now to right now, but call me back in 6 months. Maybe I'll be in a position where I could take advantage of the thing you're offering. You don't necessarily have to, turn to anger and hate and, they're ideas and they're people trying to help you in different ways. Have you blown up at anybody trying to give you advice?
Not anymore. I just like the phone calls thing that you're talking there. It's, I'm not interested. I don't need it, or I have another solution, or it's done, and I just save the time, their time because they're selling, and my time because I have to listen. So that seems to work well, and people are getting better of acknowledging that. I think I get more mad at robocalls than anything these days.
Yeah. Robocalls, that's a different beast. But, when somebody in one of the chat groups says, hey, Ted, I have this idea about what you should do with your business, or hey, Ted, I have this service I think could help you, I can hear them out. I may not agree with them, but I can hear them out.
I think I find more often than not where I'm in groups like that, and it's like the amount that people do that kind of irritates me. So, I'm friends with you, so I think because of that friendship, I seem to appear to have an invested interest in Quora, but I really don't. It's like one way or another, fail or lose. If it fails, it sucks because I rank sites with it. But if you win, then that's awesome. And when you hear people nagging over and over and over again about simple things, I'm thinking in the back of my head, why don't you figure out that problem yourself? Why do you need Ted to handle something? It just sometimes that gets under my skin.
But that's support.
Yeah.
And I don't mind it so much because I know that, they're trying to get things to work for themselves. They see other people succeeding and wonder why they aren't succeeding too. And,
Right.
Everybody's different. But you raise a good point. Maybe that shouldn't be public. So if you need that extra assistance and you're worried about how it might look, just PM me. Just don't go to the public group and dump it all. Just, send me a PM. Let's see. So some startup tactics. So you have your business built and you're trying to figure out, how to get the ball rolling. Meetup.com, set up a weekly meeting where you can talk to your potential customers and learn, find out, what they need. Does your solution meet their goals and budgets? And even if you're not live yet, even if your business isn't built yet, you should probably be doing this as a part of market research to figure out how you should price your service, how you should structure it. Should there be tiers? What should those tiers be? Having those conversations with potential future customers can save you a lot of headaches.
I know a lot of people that are actually hosting those for businesses to do information, and that's how they do client gen. So,
yeah, it's a great one. Co-working space, before you go and sign a lease, you might be able to get a lot more resources for your money by doing a membership at a co-working space. Usually what you don't get is an office where you can leave your stuff around the clock. But if you have a laptop and you just need access to a printer, it would be great if there was Wi-Fi. You need a desk from time to time, even if it isn't always your desk. Meeting rooms, they oftentimes will have beer taps and baristas and
Strippers.
they have networking events with other startups. That's a whole lot of resources that you don't get from just signing a lease somewhere to get a space. So, if you're a startup and you want to save some money and get more resources for that money, you might consider co-working space. And if you sell marketing services, then don't host your own groups. You need to sit in on other meetings. You need to go to those meetings that are all chiropractors or all dentists and just tell people you're there to learn about the problems their industry is facing. And then when they ask you what you do, you just say, I help businesses get more leads from Google, and let them connect the dots. So instead of hosting your own, just, sit in on other meetings where you think your customers might be.
Best advice I got actually from one of my clients was a dentist, and they said dentists don't go on the internet looking for SEOs. They go to conferences, and that's where they find their marketing. So if you're lucky enough to have a dental conference near you, then you should be at those for sure.
That's a great piece of advice. And get your friends and family to try out your service. Like, for some reason, people think that there's shame in having people who trust you and know you try your product first. And it's like, why go the hard way? Why not have your uncle be your first customer and review your service and give you an endorsement quote? Who the hell cares? I mean, why go the hard road when you have this easy option to get the ball rolling, to test your process, to test your customer service, to test your results before going with somebody who doesn't know you and isn't going to be flexible? And, I say go for it. Friends and family first. If you have that resource, you should be using it.
Unless you burn them up already with network marketing offers.
Yeah. If you signed them all up for Amway, you might be in trouble. If it's your first one, But you know what? Go back to the well. Even if you did, the worst they can do is say no. One of my favorite things to do is to advertise in a 1-minute video. I create a video about your service, promote it on Facebook, and I like to specifically target by location and job title. And I was able to get marketing executives, in specific areas at a penny a video view doing it this way, and getting video views from executives for a penny. I mean, that's a huge deal. And I typically find with these videos that, keeping it simple, just a cell phone video with a nice background, put it in portrait mode. I'm the person in your area who can help you with X, and then you have a local landmark for that area in your background. People relate to people. And if you're a real person they know they're going to work with, then there's something human about that that's much more effective than the polished commercial advertisement. And so especially for, a local service, you want that human element. I think it works in your favor. What do you think?
I've tried that. I'm not that big in the ads like you guys are, so I can't really comment on the effectiveness. I know Facebook works. I make a lot of money from Facebook, but playing around with that. I just haven't gotten deep into it.
All right. Well, something to play with at a minimum. Document your procedures. When you get all the expensive courses on how to make a successful agency, they're all going to tell you the same advice. You need to document what you do so that you can hire people cost effectively to follow those instructions and to deliver your results without you doing the work yourself. That's how you make your business scalable, so that you can be at the beach sipping Mai Tais and your VAs are keeping the operation running and keeping money coming in the door. What do you think about SOPs?
Yeah, you have to have them. It's kind of, that's probably the hardest part for me is creating and developing those. Because I understand that every business is different, but on the flip side of that, if you don't have that set of guidelines for your people, then you're setting them up for failure, and you're setting yourself up for failure too. So,
Yeah,
I think hands down, that was probably the hardest lesson for me to learn is make SOPs.
yeah. A lot of people don't initially understand that when Frank from Frank's Quality TV Repair decides to sell his business, because the business was Frank, really all he's doing is selling the van. So if you ultimately want a business that you can hand down to your kids or sell later to somebody else, it needs to be something set up where people other than you can do the work and deliver the results. There can be an actual change of ownership of a business that makes money. And all of that comes down to having those procedures documented, onboarding process for bringing in people to do the work, people other than you to do the work. And, it's at that point you actually have a business you could turn around and sell later. Otherwise, what you have is a job. And so that's what I had prepared. You have anything else you want to add to the content before questions?
No, I think I've kind of interjected and bugged you mid-stroke plenty of times. So,
all right. Well, if you have any questions about our show or SEO in general, now is your chance to ask. Otherwise, we will end the show and see you next time.
One question from Jay is, when do you think it's time to call it quits, admit defeat?
That's a very difficult question. I think every situation is different. When I first got into online retail, I didn't know a lot about online retail and I wanted to hit the ground running. So I made an online retailer. So by the time I got into that role, I would know a lot of the ins and outs. So I went to a company called Panda Hall in China, and I ordered 50 SKUs where they were 25 cents a unit, and they were lampwork glass pendants. And I turned around and I sold those pendants for $20 each in the US with free shipping on all orders. And it was a great little startup. It cost about $2,000 to start up to get the products and the shelving and the packing materials and the synthetic leather cords and the magnetic sterling silver clasps. And after work every day, I would box up orders. And in the morning on my way into work, I would stop by the post office and send them out. And it was really a great business. I wasn't going to retire doing it. But I learned a ton, and I realized that it wasn't ever going to be the type of business I would want to do. And so eventually I pulled the plug. And so, I made an ROI on my investment and then decided it wasn't worth the time and I'd probably find a better business. And I did. And then I pulled the plug.
Survival Life did something like that. Excuse me. They found a little survival gizmo on Alibaba, and bought those for really cheap. And then essentially said, hey, we're going to give them for free, pay shipping and handling. Or if you do the math, the shipping and handling that you're paying for, you still get like a $5 to $7 profit out of that. And they build a list at the same time. So that's a really good thing to continue doing, to maybe as a little side income, as a list building thing too, if part of your niche. So just thought I'd bring that up since you mentioned it.
And in that startup, I knew all of my costs before I ever spent a single penny. I figured it all out. I researched the product I was going to sell. I researched the shipping materials. I researched the post office shipping rates domestically. And I figured out that I could replace an order 3 times and still break even. And so I knew going in I was going to make money. The question was, how much money? How many people are going to place orders? And it worked, and people loved the service, but it was never going to be a huge victory. But it did make money. And so you have to do your planning. You have to figure out your costs, and usually before you ever spend money, you want to have your spreadsheet and figure that all out in advance.
What would you have done if Quora didn't take off?
Oh, I'd be at an online retailer making 6 figures, working below the executive team. And, that's always there. Like, I can always go back to a desk job.
Yeah.
It might be a different retailer. It might be, something else. But, at the end of the day, we all have the fallback plan of you can always get a day job. And so I view that as a safety net more than anything. And change is hard and scary, but change also brings new opportunities. So you just got to weigh it all.
Makes sense. Question came in for me is, what is your lead gen process? SEO, YouTube? Yeah. So I use SEO This week. I get a lot of referrals from that show. And it's on YouTube, obviously. It's also on all the podcast services. So I get calls from there. And SEO as well. SEO leads, though, in general, that I'm finding are not as high quality as I'm getting from the shows. And they certainly don't have a budget that's higher. And for over the top, we use a lot of AdWords. We're getting into Facebook. We're going to hit Twitter and LinkedIn for paid ads. Obviously, we do SEO there as well. I'm debating doing a YouTube kind of thing with them under that brand as well, but we'll see. Just don't really have a lot of time. I'm already doing 2 shows we're going to add, so 3 would be a bit much probably. And then a lot of networking and content marketing on other people's platforms is also bringing in leads. So if you have good content and you get an opportunity to publish on third-party websites, and do that, because those bring in a lot of referrals as well.
Yeah, I found that just spending half an hour a day in the white hat SEO category of like black hat world, I established reputation there just by helping people.
Yeah.
And once your reputation is high enough, you get people saying, hey, can you help me? Hey, can you help me? So if you want to be an influencer for the purpose of getting leads, it's really a mission of just being out there and helping people.
And that's how I monetized Facebook so well, I was doing the same. I was going out there helping people. So, but obviously that's a big time suck. It can be a big time suck. At one point, I actually just shut off Facebook and I didn't open it for like 2 weeks. So you got to be prepared for that.
Yeah, got to take vacations.
Let's see. How can I get in working with an SEO to learn more? I'm overseas and have a good chance to find a lot of VAs and start a business here.
That's a great question. If you know how to run a business, you will find that you're not a programmer programming software. You're a programmer programming people. And when you can program people to provide a solution for customers that helps the customers and brings revenue in the door, that's a great idea. Um, the question you pose is one of learning, and so you may have to pay to get the knowledge you're after, and there are courses out there and there are groups out there. So I would consider those. Um, but yeah, if you can document the procedures for a service that provides value to people, then you could use those VAs you have overseas and be able to have an agency for all practical purposes. It's a matter of figuring out what works, documenting those procedures, and then teaching your VAs to do that work for each engagement you bring in.
Yeah. I think also you have to really pick carefully who your mentors are. There are a lot of people out there that have internship programs, and basically all they're doing is looking for free work, um, and calling that an internship program. And you're going to learn just little narrow focused things. So a real mentor, to find someone like that, one, they probably don't want to mentor you because they're busy and they're deep into their thing and they need to be convinced. And in order to do that, you have to show your value versus going, hey, I want you to be my mentor. Will you teach me? I'll work for free. I get those offers all the time and I just blow them off. I have no desire to look for someone who's not already bringing value to me in one way or another. But that's how you're going to find the best mentors for you is going out and proving your value to them, and then making that approach. Hey, I would like to know more about X, Y, and Z. Can we work out some kind of arrangement where I continue to do this that I was doing for you? Even if it's simple as promoting, let's say, for example, promoting SEO Fight Club because you wanted Ted to take you on in a mentorship role. Hey, Ted, I've promoted this for you. And here's all these things. I know that you've gotten X, Y, and Z number of views and visitors and etc. Or I've promoted Quora for you, and look, my affiliate thing, I got some things. Can you help me out? Because I need a mentor for software creation, for example. That's how you're going to find a better mentor, and two, you're probably going to learn a lot more that way. And you'll have a friend for life, in my opinion. They'll always be there, whether they're mentoring you or not. There's someone that you can lean back on and make a phone call to when you need some help or just a third party opinion.
Yep. And then you don't need to do the whole thing necessarily. If you have those VAs, you could use those VAs just for writing articles. You could use those VAs just for doing outreach for backlinks. You could use those VAs just for assembling and selling Google stacks. You could take that resource you have of overseas VAs and apply them to a piece of the puzzle and then turn around and sell that piece to other SEOs.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks again, everybody, for joining the show, and we will talk to you next week. Take care.
Bye, everybody.